Welcome back. This is Mr. Tom here with another video for you. This week we're going to be learning about sound. Now, if you followed along last week's activity, where you got to learn a little bit about earthquakes, and we even made a seismograph, which is a device that detects earthquake shaking and the movement from the shaking. This actually kind of carries on a little bit from that activity, because if you remember earthquakes, that movement is emitted in waves. And there are a couple different kinds of waves we talked about. They both travel through solids, like the rock beneath your feet. Of course, there are other kinds of waves. There are waves that can travel through liquids and the air. And they travel kind of different ways between those two different media there. But we're going to be talking about sound waves, and sound waves, of course, can travel through water and air. Imagine you are a bat and you're out at night, you're hunting, you're hungry, you're looking for some food. Now, as a bat, you have a special way of detecting your food. And there are some other animals that do this too. What they do is they emit a really high-pitched noise. And that vibration travels through the air. It actually causes the air in front of it to vibrate, and it moves in a wave pattern. Now what happens is when those waves run into an object, then the waves bounce back. It's kind of like, maybe you've heard of sonar, like when a submarine sends those pingings down below. What it's doing is it's sending down waves, and then when it hits something, it bounces back up. Same kind of thing when a bat is out hunting. It's called sonar. And that, of course, is produced by sound emitting from the bat. So we are going to be demonstrating how to make sound, not with sonar, but something similar. Some of you might play an instrument in school. So I remember when I was in grade school and throughout high school, my instrument was the trombone. We are going to be demonstrating some properties of sound by making our own little instrument. Let's see what we got going on here. So, in order to make our instrument, we are going to need a plastic bottle, and it could be any size. I picked this size right here. And what you're going to do is, first of all, if there's a label, you want to make sure you take that off because you want it nice and clear. You are going to cut it in half. Now, I'm going to do, and again, if you've seen any of my past videos that involve some cutting, a lot of times I use a utility knife. Now, of course, I strongly encourage that adults do this part. Okay. Now, the reason I want to use a utility knife, it's nice and sharp. It's essentially a razor blade here. And that just kind of helps get my cut started. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of kind of get that started, push that through there. Okay. Now, if I wanted, I can just continue with the utility knife, go all the way around. But just to show you that you can do this with scissors, and go ahead and go the rest of the way with scissors. You want to try and get it as even as you can. So it's nice when you have bottles with these ridges here, because what you can do is you can start your incision along one of those lines, and when you cut, just travel down that same line there. Try and get it as even and as smooth as you can. There we go. All right. Now, the part you're going to use is this here. Oop. The top where the mouth is. So the bottom part here, you don't need that. What you can do is you can recycle it. There are lots of other activities you can do with it, so you can save it if you like. It's really useful for a lot of things. But I'm going to set this aside. Okay. Next, what I want to do is I want to take a hole puncher. And I want to slide it up. And I want to get it as far up half of the bottle here. You can even, just sort of bend it a little bit, work your way up if you can. If you can't go any higher than that, this looks like maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. That's fine. Just go ahead and punch your hole and pull it out. There you got one hole right there. All right, now got a vinyl glove. Hopefully you have some of these in stock. With everything going on right now, it's nice to, be a little extra cautious. Use some gloves, of course, washing hands, Lysol, and all that. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this up. I'm going to take some scissors, and in one piece, I'm going to cut out the thumb and finger portions. Just kind of work your way all the way around. There you go. So this here, you don't need that. We'll set that aside. So here you're kind of left with the sleeve here, or tube. And you are going to cut that apart. Just cut it lengthwise like so. All right. So now you end up with a shape. And you just want one of those halves there. So you're basically cutting yourself a rectangle. Now you can use a balloon if you like. The thing with balloons though is they can be pretty hard to stretch out. What you want to do is you want to stretch out over the bottle here, and with a balloon that can be a little tough. So this material is perfect. It's nice and stretchy, a little more stretchy. All right. Next thing you're going to do is you want to lay that over this cut end of the bottle here. Now the trick here is you want to make it as tight as you can. Make sure it's covering the entire opening. And to make it as tight as you can, you are going to take a rubber band. Make sure it's all covered. Wrap it over the top. You might have to work at it a little bit, just pry a little bit with your fingers. That's getting there. There you go. That should be good there. So this is a membrane. So if you think about your ears, the different parts inside your ear, way deep in there you have an eardrum. It's called an eardrum because it has this sort of like thin membrane kind of material. So when vibration waves, the sound waves, hit that membrane, it bounces back. Remember when we talked about the example of a bat hunting for food and using sonar? It emits a sound, those sound waves, they hit an object, like say a moth or something flying around. It bounces back towards them. Same kind of principle here. So this is our membrane, okay? We kind of like made a little drum. Now next thing you want to do, once you got this as tight as you can get it, you want to find where you punched your hole. Got it right there on mine. You want to make sure this isn't covered. Okay. If you have a cap on here, go ahead and take that off. Next thing you want to do is you want to take construction paper. Doesn't matter what color. All you're going to do is roll it up. Roll it up like that, and you want it to have a nice, secure fit through the opening of your bottle. Okay. In fact, it's a little better to make it too tight than too loose, because if it's too tight, then all you can do is you can just sort of let it go, and then it conforms to that shape. Now you want to push it through. I feel like that's a good fit there. So when you slide it through, it shouldn't just be able to go up quickly. You should have to apply some force. That means it's nice and tight. But you want to be able to push it up and stop right when it starts touching the membrane here. Okay, don't jab it through. Don't leave space there. You want it just touching. Okay. In fact, if you need to, you can back off just a little bit. All right. Well, I think this is perfect so far. The last material I need for this is a straw. Now, this straw I cut down a little bit. It doesn't really matter too much how long your straw length is to start. The main thing is you want to make sure it fits through that hole you made. Okay, so I am going to see if I can get this through. If you need to, well, you can do a couple things. One, you could take the membrane back off, and you can use your hole puncher, and you can make that hole just a little bit bigger by basically making a second hole that overlaps a little bit. Or you can take scissors and just cut one of the sides just a little bit. So that way when you poke your straw through, should be enough room there for it to go through. There we go. All right, now here you got your instrument. Your membranophone has a membrane, so we call it a membranophone. Think the word phonics comes from sound. All right, now let's see how well the instrument works. You hear that? I think it sounds just like a saxophone. Maybe some of you play saxophone. Now, how did I do that? Remember we talked about sound as vibration? So what I'm doing is I'm just simply blowing. I'm not even humming. I'm blowing through the straw. The vibrations travel through the straw. And the trick here is that your straw is just touching. I don't know if you can see through here, but it's just touching the side of the construction paper tube that I made. So those vibrations actually are being transferred to the tube. And because the tube is just touching the membrane here, it's transmitting up to the membrane. And so the vibrations are just kind of working their way through there, up through the membrane, and it makes noise. In fact, you know what? I don't even have to have the straw touching the tube. Moving it around there. So there's enough vibration nearby that it's vibrating the tube, and that is getting transferred up to the membrane. Now let's see what happens when I move this tube up and down. See? Remember, it has to be touching. So in this case, oh wow. In this case, for the instrument to work, the tube actually does need to be touching the membrane. So there you go. It's your own mini saxophone, essentially. It's called a membranophone. All right. Well, I hope that was fun. Oh, by the way, just one last thing. You can experiment further if you want. See if it makes a difference if you cut that straw so it's a little shorter. Or let's say you want to start out with a long straw to begin with. And again, it just might take some playing around, but you want to make sure the tube is touching and see what different kinds of sounds you can make depending on where you put your tube. So, yeah, a lot of different fun things you can do with it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I will see you next week.